Welcome, everybody, to this month's Intentional Success webinar. Today, we're going to talk about the 10 must-do things that you should be working on now to prep for 2021. Some of these will be a work in progress, but I do hope you'll consider them and take heed with some of the messaging that I'm giving you today. If you are new to us, and we still get new folks every day because I still market, so we've got new folks on the webinar always. Welcome to all of you for being here. I'm Tom Stimson. I'm president of the Stimson Group. I've been doing webinars like this for a really long time now, many years, maybe a decade. And I talk about the business of AV. My company is Stimson Group. I have the Intentional Success newsletter and website, web community. I do Jumpstart workshops. I was the founder of AV Matters. And I help companies in the live event space work on their business. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. So as we get into this, I always start with why this webinar? Why am I doing this particular webinar? Why did I pick this topic? And I picked my topics probably, at least 6 weeks in advance, if not longer. In the past, I did an annual calendar. Matter of fact, I had a wonderful annual calendar for 2020 that just went out the window after February. So now I look at the questions that I'm getting, and I take notes whenever you're talking to me on the phone. I've got notes in my little school pads because they only cost $1.50. And I go back and I look at that and I see what are the questions that people are asking and what are the questions they should be asking and how will that manifest in a webinar. So this webinar, what's going on? Well, we've got vaccine rollout going on. It's several countries we're getting rolling out, at least in Western countries. Hopefully over the next few months we'll see it roll out more broadly. There's a potential perfect storm of things that could happen, particularly here in the U.S. or North America. We might see a monetary injection in the U.S. any moment now, but we'll probably see more after the new year, after the new administration is installed. We are looking at a potential travel rebound in 2021 because with the increased confidence of the vaccine in place and the fact that hopefully we'll have our numbers down a little bit by then, that we'll see more what I would say is consumer travel, maybe not business travel as much. We're going to see some reglobalization of the U.S. The U.S. has become kind of isolated during the current administration, and I think the new administration is going to get us back into the global world, which I think is going to be very good for the events industry. That'll help us be a player once again and be part of the conversation and be part of global events. Q3 of 2021 is going to be an interesting one to watch. And right now, if we continue on track of having a successful vaccine rollout, and that we've got, if we're at 50 or 60% distribution by the end of the summer, I think we'll see a pretty good business events Q3, Q4 in particular next year. So there's a lot going on right there. Now, having said all that, this is not the same as going back to business as usual, and I'll talk about business as usual more next month. But it's not going to take us back to where we were. It is going to help elevate the things that we've been doing here the past several months. The other reason I want to do this particular webinar and talk about the things I'm going to talk about today is I'm also seeing a lot of left behind. The folks who have done nothing, who chose not to do a pivot, chose to do a wait and see, are now kind of starting to stick their heads up and saying, well, what should I have done? And is waiting still okay? Can I still wait till spring or summer and business will be back? There's some opportunities ahead for everyone, whether you've pivoted into the virtual world or not. And so there are things that you need to be doing with your business right now to prepare for that. So the tips I'm going to give you today, the things I'm going to talk about today, I think apply to everyone in whatever segment that you're in. This is good small business fundamental stuff. Anybody in a service business, this is good stuff for you, whether you chose to go to full service events or you're still niche or you're waiting for rental to come back. All of those are good. I think this stuff is going to apply to you because you haven't been left behind. You made a choice, and now we need to give you the business advice to help you support that choice going forward. I tell my clients all the time, I said, I will tell you where I think you should go, but once you decide where to go, I'll support you in that direction and give you the best advice I can to navigate the direction you've chosen to go. So I'm not judging whether or not you pivoted. That's not the point here. The point is you've made a choice. Now, what's the next step that you need to take? And that's where I want to help you. So I was thinking about all this and this whole feeling left behind thing. I was remembering back, I used to do Radio Shack shows. Radio Shack was a big client. I worked directly with them for years, and then when I started working with Alford Media, that account went over there. And I did their annual sales meetings, which was a tour around the country. They'd get all the regional managers in a ballroom, 500, 600, 1,000 of them at one time, and go through the entire product catalog. And it always cracked me up because the president would get up there, and whenever he got, and this is mid-'80s, 1985 or so, he would get up there and he would get to this product, which is the stereo cassette adapter, so you could play a cassette in the 8-track player in your car. And by 1985, Radio Shack had sold more of these adapters than all of the 8-track players ever made in the world. So if you are ever feeling like you've been left behind and you missed the boat, that you didn't get on board with that new thing, the cassette or the CD or whatever it is, just remember there's always money to be made back there. And Radio Shack was really good at making money on things that were absolutely obsolete and selling the same thing over and over again. So there's a lot of people who must have bought a lot of these over the years. So I'm going to give you a little bit of news. I will get into the topic here, but I'm going to give you a little bit of news and things that I'm seeing right now. This is really aimed at small business, of which we all belong in. And small business is not a derogatory term. It is simply the size of our business. We got small, medium, and large enterprises. We're small enterprises. We have a few medium enterprises in our industry, but most of us are small, less than 500 employees. And that's what most of our country is. Most of the U.S. is made up of small businesses. So the U.S. Census Bureau keeps track of business applications in the U.S., and they have been up 43% this year. And most of that is coming since the onset of the pandemic. Now, a lot of these are obviously people's side hustles and selling their homemade pickles or whatever it might be, or the balm they invented. These are home-based businesses, but they are still businesses. Where it is unclear from the census data how many of these would ever hire employees, which is an important thing to consider in small businesses, is how many employees do they have? And the mistake that a lot of people make is thinking that most small business is just a person without any employees. But most small businesses have multiple employees. And many of them may have started out as a side hustle, and then added employees over time. So some of these will be successful businesses. So that's a lot of new businesses out there in the marketplace. Now, the sad part of the data that I was uncovering this week was that 29% of small businesses have closed for good. Opportunity Insights is associated with Harvard University, and they do research on this sort of thing. Businesses close for good. I've seen quite a few of them. I've helped a number of our colleagues close their business down in a controlled fashion and get out there as cleanly and as wisely as they can. It's all over the world. My karate studio that I've trained at for many, many years had to close. So there's lots of this going on. Lots of things are closing. And the last point I want to make here is that, and there's also a number of businesses that have gone dormant without actually closing. So in terms of how much small business has really shut down, the number could actually be much higher because in our industry, I know probably 10% of the people I talk to are actually dormant. They haven't shut their business down. They're just not actually doing any business. And when I say no business, I mean zero, nothing at all. Many of you are probably doing 10 or 20 or 30% of your business just by happenstance. Some of you are doing much, much more because you're putting some intentional effort into it, and great, good for you. Now, no, there's no measure in anything that I looked at that says how many companies like yours executed a strategic pivot in their business model in order to stabilize. There's nothing that says how many businesses are fundamentally different today than they were in the beginning of the year. And that would be an interesting question, and it may be moot, because if you're still running, you're still viable. Who cares what it is you did to be that way? The fact is you did it, and that's what's really important, because small business is very much about, surviving. This is probably not an unfamiliar chart to anyone who's ever done a corporate meeting, because every presenter on The Future brings this one up. 2/3 of our industry, 2/3 of any industry, are middle and late adopters to new technology. And we're dealing with a lot of new technology right now as Tom plays with OBS, and you have all your vMix suites and all the things that you guys are doing out there, customizing platforms and helping people do shows. There's a lot of new technology out there. Innovators aren't driven by demand. And don't worry about not being an innovator. Innovators are a very small part of our population. We have them in our industry. Every industry does. The innovators in our industry were playing with live events, virtual live events stuff, platforms and tools long before there was a pandemic. Okay? The visionaries at the beginning of the pandemic are the people that moved in to that space and said, we need to figure this out. What do we need to learn? Get me up to speed. Can we adapt some other things? These are the people who jumped on that learning curve. So early adopters anticipate demand based on a signal. They're making a bet that the signals they are seeing are going to take them in a direction where this matters. And so they start adopting that technology. Now, pragmatists, which are half of the rest of us versus conservatives, pragmatists tend to align with demand. So it's been interesting since we have this 9-month compressed market cycle that we've seen this entire curve manifest over this short period of time. And it lines up with a timeline. So the pragmatists are the people who in late June, early July started paying attention to the things their clients were asking. Maybe they didn't build a studio. Maybe they didn't do a real virtual event or a big virtual event until September or October. But they are part of that early majority, which was helping a lot of you break even right now. Now, conservatives follow demand. Conservatives are the people who are waking up right now going, all right, well, we made it to the end of the year. Maybe it's time that we focused more on this virtual event thing, started talking to our customers about it instead of referring them somewhere else. And so conservatives are kicking in right about now. Now, the skeptics will wait until all their other choices are gone. And that's okay. There is no wrong place to be on this curve. This is an observation. You will always be you. So understanding where you fit in, however, will help you make needed decisions. If you recognize that you're a conservative business and you can share that vision with the rest of your employees so that you are all thinking in conservative terms about, is it too early to jump onto this, or are we behind and we need to play catch up? You have to do it from the place where you normally live. It's very unusual for a company to move from conservative to visionary in terms of their approach to technology. I've seen it done. It's generally not with the same owner. It's a change in leadership, a new CEO, a new acquisition. More often than not, I'll still see companies move from visionary to conservative because owners over time become generally more conservative in their decision making. So a lot of folks my age who own these businesses dealing with this pandemic are very conservative, if even skeptical about what to do, and wait and see. And the people who are embracing all these opportunities we're seeing right now are definitely pragmatists and visionaries, are definitely are younger, tend to be younger than the rest of us. So The big question for the pivot adverse folks, though, is when does your decision to wait, when does that start to hurt your chances for future success? Because sooner or later, you're going to have to play some sort of catch up. You may still be at the tail end of the curve, but you will have to catch up because you don't want to be off that squeezed out far right side where you disappear into nothingness. So, leaving that, I just want to ask this question for all of you to consider here today and going forward is which live event companies would you bet on, looking around the perimeter, the companies that you know in your sphere, who would you bet on to emerge stronger post-pandemic? Who is going to be the winners, and what do those companies have in common? What's the quality about that organization that tells you they're going to be stronger post-pandemic? And it's interesting because it could be a combination of being an innovator and being conservative. So think about what you admire and what you think will work, and try and understand that. Maybe it's something you can apply to your business. Now, for those of you who like to talk about that stuff, tomorrow is office hours with me on Intentional Success Network. This is a Zoom call. Anybody's welcome to join. You can bring any topic you want. I sometimes prepare a little riff. I always have one handy in case people are finding things not finding enough to talk about. But I want to talk about this. I want to talk about what you guys are seeing out there, and plus anything else that you want to bring to the table. So pop over to Intentional Success, RSVP for this. It's a Zoom call. It's 1 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. Come on, join me. Be there. Aloha. Now, on to this month's content. As always, questions in the Q&A box. I see you guys have found the chat. Keep introducing yourselves. You can comment, disagree with me. There's nothing better than being disagreed with. Means I'm going to think even harder. And I'm thinking for you, so that's to your benefit. So my top 10 recommendations to start in 2021. And of course, I made the title to this before I even figured out what the 10 things were. So I went back to my book and I started going through those things. And what are the conversations that I'm having with my clients? What are the questions they're asking? Where are the places that they need help? And it's been evolving, over the months. So what's been going on really this past month has become very, very important. So this is in no particular order, except that once I put communication on the list, I had to put it first. So I did move this one ahead to the top of the thing because we all know how important communication is. And I talked a lot about communication in the survival series webinars back in March and early April. Every week I reminded you, what do you need to be communicating? Who do you need to be communicating to? Keeping in touch with your furloughed employees, updating your customers on your availability, that sort of thing. Here it is at the end of the year. We have some pre-2021 communications that need to go out. And who do they go out to? Well, you have communications to employees, suppliers, and strategic partners. Okay, these are your backstage people. These are your insiders, the people that help you get the work done. And you need to give them a message. You also have your current clients, the people that are doing business with you now, which typically I'm finding are 50% of those are people you did not do business with before the pandemic. So communicating with them is important as well. And then you have the past customers, the people you haven't really done any business with since the pandemic started, but you hope to maybe do business with again one day. So we have messages for all of these people. And you can segment this list, or you can write a message or communicate a message that addresses all of them together. It's really up to you. What am I going to tell them? Here are my priorities. Remind everybody that you're still here. Even if you're busy, active, and you're doing stuff, tell them that you're still here and you're still thinking about them, whoever they are. Sometimes, the person sitting right next to you needs to know that you are here for them and you are thinking about them and you haven't forgotten them, even though you guys are busy doing whatever it is you're doing right now. Remind everybody of where you are focused right now. What is it your business is doing? What is it you're trying to accomplish? What does that look like? How might they get involved? Then I would also talk about what are you planning for? Yes, we're working really hard on doing this right now. And many of you were doing this over the summer. Hey, we're busy building our studio right now, and we're looking forward to figuring out what's the right platform to support for your live events going forward. We need to continue to give that same kind of message. Here's what we're working on. Here's what we're planning for. We're expecting to do some in-person events in the summer. So here are the things that we're doing about that. And then make recommendations about how they can help you and or help themselves, depending on your situation. Make some recommendations. Here are some things that you could be doing right now, or here are some things that you could do to help us on our journey to get where we're going. So craft your communication message. I'm crafting mine. Many of you will get my email. I don't normally do an end of the year email missive, but this year kind of warrants one. And I'm going to follow this format, and I recommend that you do that as well. Item number 2. This is going to be popular and unpopular. Restore wages. You cut payroll, you reduced pay, people are working on lowered salaries. I'm making this recommendation about restoring wages of the people who remain in your business because you've got to get back to a business operating normal without subsidies. And I'll talk more about that in a couple of the other recommendations. So rather than hiring more people, and I know many of you are thinking about that and you're talking about it, I'd rather see you restore the wages of the people that have brought you where you are today. Don't go out and hire a bunch of folks and create more burden and more mouths to feed when you can outsource them. And this doesn't mean it has to happen all at once. If you're at 50% pay or 70% pay, it doesn't mean you have to jump up to 100. But start making the move in that direction. Make wage normalization a higher priority than just adding headcount. Wage normalization is very important. It's great for morale, it's great for retention. And because we don't really, particularly in the U.S., we don't have the government subsidies on wages and living that other countries do, our businesses have got to support our employees, and so it's time to get back on that. Now, along with that idea, there's subsidies that you've got inside your business that are boosting your profitability, and we need to look at removing more of those. So, restore wages, pay more to a few instead of less to many, right? Get a clear picture of your P&L by removing subsidies. If you own your building and you've reduced the rent that you pay yourself because you can do that and it makes your P&L look better, get that rent back up. That company needs to support itself. It needs to see what it is it's working towards. If you're a business owner and the building owner, you know that ultimately it's all going into the same pocket. So it's okay to have a business that doesn't look as profitable as it could if you were subsidizing rent. I want my management team to know exactly what it costs to run this business without subsidies so that we have a target to work towards. We can't just break even based on reduced wages and rent subsidies. We need to break even based on what it takes to run that business. You should be thinking like a startup, and if it's difficult for you to restore wages right now, do a startup compensation program. Okay, we hit this milestone, we do this profit share, it goes in as wages, that sort of thing. You can build it back up gradually, and you can also build it based on milestone successes on business. There's lots of ways you can do it. I'd be happy to talk with you about that. And in doing all of this, remember, this is your last chance to reconsider your talent and leadership mix. Did you keep the right people? Are they doing the things that you need to do going forward? Do you have the right leaders in place? Do you have people who you kept out of tradition or out of loyalty who aren't big contributors right now? If you feel reluctant to restore somebody's wages, then I would ask you to explain to me why they're still there, if that's true. So there are more hard decisions. Like I said, this is a popular and unpopular recommendation, but I think it's time to make this move. Now, next one. Proactive simplification. Now, this is a broad concept. we are a really complicated industry, and our processes are very complicated. Our systems for doing things. One of the reasons people keep asking me about bringing back more of their staff is because when they get busy, their process is so convoluted, they need more people to do it. And they haven't figured out how to simplify things to get that work done. So look at everything the same way in terms of what can I do to make this simpler? Hey, this is a great kit. Can I make it simpler? Can I make it less expensive? This is a comprehensive solution. Is it really comprehensive, or is it just full of features? Okay, comprehensive solutions are simpler for the buyer. So simplification is not just in terms of organizational processes or operational processes. It's also simpler in terms of how does the buyer get what they need. Always look for things that are repeatable and scalable. In other words, I can do the same thing over and over again successfully. I can do more of it successfully, which is scalable. So my new favorite question is, how will we do this the fourth time? Okay, let's don't figure it out for this time. Let's figure it out for the fourth time we're going to do it. And think in those terms, because anything you're trying to fix, you're going to do again. So think of it in that way. So a simplification mindset, I think this comes up in a couple more forms here, but think about what you can do to make simpler. Speaking of simpler, lots of conversations about proposal templates. The old school proposals aren't working, and they're not going to work. It's a challenge. So how many templates do you actually need? Well, think about your lines of business. Now, you have multiple lines of business. You may have an integration business, and a sales business, and a rental business, and an event business, and a streaming event business. Those are all different lines of business, and they probably need different proposals. Within a line of business, you have different types of projects, and you have different types of buyers. So let's just take a simple line of business where you have 5 product lines, 5 product sets in that line of business, and you have 3 different types of customers. You might have 15 proposal templates. Or you might have 3 simple proposal templates by customer type with items that you remove. Or you have 5 templates by product type with lines that you remove. So look at this objectively. You can simplify this. Reinventing the wheel every time you do a proposal is insane. You're recreating language that you've used before. We need to catalog all of this. Templates will help us do that. There's some logical first steps on how to get started on this, which is go back to the past 20 proposals you've written and find the common threads and find the way that you can make all of them better by using similar formats. Reduce customization in that process. There's lots of things that will benefit you in this process. It's time to start figuring that out as well. Training, certification, you've got some downtime and sometimes you're crazy busy. Let's reconcile that. Now I would put emphasis on customer side virtual event training, skills that you don't normally use in your business, graphic design, animation, editing, writing, proposal writing, marketing, sales, all the things that we do that need writing, all those classes that you slept through that you hated, that you said you would never use, English and algebra. Well, here we are. You need all of them in our virtual event world. So invest in those things. Now, where do you get training like that? Come on, guys, just Google it. I'll give you a starting point, and I put a couple of more of these over on Intentional Success Network. Meetings Without Walls, this is not a recommendation, this is not an endorsement. This is just something I found, and I know people have gotten their certified virtual event planner certificate. Go find stuff like this and see what works for you. This will help you be better with your customers. You can get all the technical training you want, and there's some great resources growing out there, because goodness knows we're all online right now. What else are we going to do? So figure out what that is and make that a program, make that a priority. Let your team tell you where the good stuff is so that we can make it available to other people on your team, including your freelance team, folks. Speaking of which, continue to deepen your bench. Many of you are panicked, worried to the point of panic about getting busy again. You laid off your great employees last summer. They've gone on. You're not sure you're going to get them back. You don't know how you're going to find people to do events next summer. We're going to have graduations starting in April and May, June and July. We're going to have a great graduation season. How are you going to pull that off? You barely made it through last year. And you were using furloughed employees who are now all generally gone. Deep in your bench. You need redundancy. The employees that you have right now, in my opinion, should all be customer-facing employees, not technical employees per se, because there's a great gig economy out there for technical employees and event employees, people to event positions. But your sales team, your production management, project management, creative producers, all of these are people who should probably be on your staff. Do a cost-benefit analysis of a full-time equivalent versus a freelance professional. I've given you this formula on many, many webinars. Matter of fact, I think I gave it again on the last one. Quit looking at freelancers as people who should be full-time. Hire them for projects. Don't just hire them to fill time slots. Freelancers, quit selling time, start selling projects. Okay, it goes both ways. Quit focusing on, here's my day rate versus, here's a project where you're going to need me in the studio for 3 days, and we've got pre-production. Here's my fee. Okay, look at, in terms of deepening bench, look at potential partners who do the same style of a meeting that you do. Okay, they may use the same platform. They may use vMix or OBS. Most of you are using vMix. Find people that do use vMix. Find people that have a studio setup that kind of matches the way that you do it, so that you can oversell and know where you can find another studio. Find people who use a similar process for managing clients. Green room producers is something I learned yesterday. Understand what it is that you do. Find other people that do that, and you've got somebody else that you can outsource. Again, I'm getting online and finding things. I was not familiar with the Vendry. Go check it out. Again, this is not an endorsement or a recommendation. I'm just going, holy crap, how much stuff is out there that I don't know about that could be useful for my business. You need to get outside your bubble. That's my message. We all need to get outside our bubble. Lots of things have popped up. Lots of things have become very relevant now that might not have, even though this has been around for a while, it maybe never occurred to us that something like this would apply to our business, and suddenly it does. So I've shared some more things like this on over on the Intentional Success community. Hopefully you'll share them as well. There's some fascinating stuff going out there. All right, let's talk a little bit more about your business, how you segment your business. I talked earlier, you have lines of business. Segmenting the services in your business from the transactions in your business. Services are when we sell outcomes, where it's the human effort that the customer is paying for. It's the human intervention that makes the difference, as opposed to a transaction where I'm moving something from my ownership to your ownership, such as a box sale or rental. How can we separate these better without creating unnecessary redundancies in our business? So think of your business as several supply chains, right? You have lines of business that could buy from each other. My rental business, when we were at Alford, the rental company bought from the sales company, right? The rental company didn't buy it. We bought it through the sales company, and we used their organizational structure as part of our supply chain. Don't vertically integrate more than you need to. Now, the exception on all this is I want to talk a little bit about sales, is that you have a sales organization which can serve multiple lines of business. And given that we are running much smaller staff and you have multiple lines of business you're trying to keep in play, look at how you can consolidate that sales staff. Okay, use different processes and different sales interfaces depending on the situation. Customer service reps are great for doing rental transactions and box sales. You don't need an account executive to do that. The owner of the company doesn't need to be writing a rental order. A CSR can do that. but they can also do several other things that are customer facing. So decentralizing account management, localized transactions. Your best customers have trouble navigating you. They don't know who to talk. I have this trouble with my bank. My banker, who set up my business accounts, wrote all my mortgages, set up my line of credit, is not the same person I talk to if I need to make a deposit, right? So figuring out, but it's taken us almost 2 years for the bank to make it clear, how do we get work done with that bank? And I keep going back to my banker saying, until you guys do a better job of telling me how to do this, I'm going to keep coming to you saying I need to make a deposit until you guys fix this. So think about your customers in those terms. What can you do to make it easier for them to navigate you? So here's an example. Many of you are still in integration business and the events business. So let's look at these chains right here, right? So you got product sales, and then you do installation or integration. Design is a higher order of service for that. Platform or venue is a higher order of service for that. And many integrators are finding out now that they're also being asked to design and provide the platform for meetings and events for their organizations, and then go back and do the design and the integration and the product sales to make that all work. On the event side, we have the same formula. We have the rentals and the integrated rentals, the delivery setup. We have the event production, which many of us are very comfortable with. We have event design, and then we have the streaming platform, which is the venue. So the customer is going to come in at any one of these products, but they should get the right user interface for that. And customer service reps can work the ends of this chart. They can do the transactions. And then account management could work in the middle. An account executive, a creative producer, artistic director, design director, pick your title, works in the middle of this chart. Simplify the user interface, make it really clear for the customer where they can go to get this sort of stuff done. Now, an interesting thing as I put this chart together, and I probably could do a whole other webinar on this, is how long is the streaming platform going to remain more important than the physical destination? Yikes, that's the question we need to be asking. For some of you, we hope it's forever. This would be fantastic. For others of you, you need this to stop. Whatever happens, we need to start asking that question, figuring out, paying attention to what's going on. Because right now, the platform, in my mind, is everything. And if I were selling in either the integration space or the event space, I would be selling from the platform level and then engaging with the client where they are comfortable after that. They may not need to buy at the platform level, but that's where I'm going to start, because that's going to be my ideal customer. All right, let's talk about reframing profit margins. Our numbers are different. Has anybody noticed that? Yeah. Some of you are very excited about it. I've had quite a few phone calls from people saying, hey, this is really, really awesome. Hang on. Hopefully I am still live and you guys are still seeing me. My local screen here is frozen up. But, all right, hit me in the chat if you're having any trouble with your stream right now. All good, awesome, fantastic. All right, so reframing profit margins. Okay, you're in the service industry. I've always told you in the service industry, even if you're renting something, that is service. That's the business that you're in. Your profit margin, the minimum profit margin I would be advising you to seek is 50%, and that includes your internal costs, the replacement costs for your internal services. There are no subsidies in gross profit, okay? Everything is a direct cost. Now, if your business is targeting net profit of 10% or less, that is really a weak net profit in a service business, okay? A true net profit of less than 10% is kind of scary. You either need to charge more or you need to deliver less. So focus on your gross profit, keep your overhead to a minimum, life will be good. But keep pushing that number up. There's no reason you can't do a good-sized streaming event at 70% gross profit. I'm seeing it happen regularly. This should be the standard for many of you. If you make some mistakes, if you have some things that are out of your control that you can't charge the customer for, yeah, your profit margin is going to drop. If you're super busy and you're having to outsource, yeah, your profit margin is going to drop. But you've got to start with a profitable number to end up at a 50% or better average. Now, the replacement cost thing still applies. The price that you can buy at is your replacement cost. If your customer can buy at the same price that you can buy at, it is not a good replacement cost. Your numbers are wrong, right? So if the customer should not be able to buy at the same price that you can buy at. So your replacement cost is the price that you can buy at, but your customer can't. And eliminate the concept of discounts. Unless you are still in a rental transaction business, or you have a box sale agreement of cost plus, which is basically a reverse discount, take the concept of discounts out of your language. Okay? Negotiate exclusions and inclusions. And what do I mean by this? Exclusions are things that the client has to do for themselves. Inclusions are things that you will do for the client. And in your proposal, you're going to define these things. And if the customer says, hey, we like what you offered, our budget isn't that high, no problem. Here are things that we can take from the inclusion column and put it into the exclusion column. We put it back on you. And the beauty of doing this, the beauty of this method is we've got their budget. We're going to work towards their price. Okay? And we're making the value of what we offered more apparent. And very often they're going to come back to you and say, you know what? We're not comfortable doing that. We're not good at that. Let me go find some more money. Okay? It's a much better way of negotiating than throwing discounts at things, which is far too easy. And frankly, I've got a little saying here on my board here, desperate. Okay? Get rid of the sprinkles. A discount is a sprinkle. Sell without desperation. The way to sell without desperation is know what the trade-offs are. Look at your inclusions and your exclusions. Make those trade-offs. You'll have a much better closing. Standardized deliverables. There's that word again, standardize. Custom is the enemy of outsourcing. Many of you are learning that. If you think everything you do is custom and you're reinventing the wheel every time you do a job, it's really difficult to hire somebody to come in and help you because you picked a non-standard way of doing things. I was on a call yesterday with the Tempo Live Events group, which is live events production professionals, and some of you are probably members of that or follow that group. And they are very customized. Most of them come from the broadcast or theatrical world, which are used to very standardized, in the film world, very standardized ways of doing things. And if we're over here in the AV live events world, we're constantly making it up as we go along. And this hurts us when we move into this virtual space because the people we need to hire are not old school AV events people. They're really broadcast and film people doing floor manager roles and pre-production roles that we're not used to. So customization gets us in trouble there. Spend less time, of course, talking about how you do things because that's not what makes you special, right? Focus on the next step. A typical example on this are customers who are, we got to rent our studio. We got to rent our studio. Well, that's the problem because you're trying to do the wrong thing. If you promote your studio and somebody calls to talk about renting your studio, don't focus on the rental transaction, focus on what happens after that. And a great example of this is if somebody's going to come in and self-produce using your studio, you need to give them a checklist of things that they need to have prepared and have covered in order to use your studio successfully. These are exclusions. It's a list of exclusions. Every exclusion is a potential purchase contract for you, for them to get you to do it. So be helpful, help people get to the outcome that they want to have, but you're not going to get there by focusing on the rental. You're going to get there by focusing on making them successful in that event. And again, standardizing all of these things is just going to make your life that much easier. And then the last thing I really want to talk about is demos and capabilities pitches. It's in every sales process I teach, it's in every marketing course I talk about. I don't know how you can sell in the business that you're in without doing a demo, without doing a capabilities pitch at some point in time. You need to develop them, you need to standardize them, you can't just make them up on the fly. Think about how you develop these things. So if you're not doing it or you think you need to do it better, you have early, middle, and late stage buyers, and each one of them needs a different demo. Okay? If you're going to do a pitch or a demo, you need a different one depending on where they are in their buying cycle. Early stage buyers are people who are seeking general information, which is a lot of our audience right now. They're not sure what questions to ask. We know we want to have a meeting. We know we need to do it virtually. I don't know what to ask for. And if your standard sales response is, well, you need to develop an RFP and I'll write you a quote, we can't help those people. They're going to move on. We're going to give them a capabilities pitch that helps the early stage buyer know how all of this works and what questions they should be asking. I want to get an early stage buyer to become a middle stage buyer. A middle stage buyer knows enough to ask questions. Okay? They may not be asking the right questions, but they are at least knows enough to ask questions. And a late stage buyer is somebody who is ready to buy. And obviously, somebody who's ready to buy from you and wants your input and guidance doesn't need the same demo as somebody who is not even sure what question to ask, or is asking questions but maybe not asking the right questions because they don't know what you do. So here's a quick chart for you to remember. Early stage demos or capabilities, pitches, you talk about best practices and what companies like yours do. Create a conversation. Now, as they come to know you and they start asking the right questions, they're really going to be interested in how your company does it. In other words, they've become a middle stage buyer, in which case you start talking about your general capabilities. Okay, here's a few examples of what we do. We can do this, we can do this. Customers ask for this, this is what it looks like. A couple of case studies. Late stage buyers, we need to be presenting to them exactly what we think they need. We need to be making recommendations. So if I'm going to do a demo for a late stage buyer, I'm going to make sure that we've started with a basic understanding of where we are in the process and what they think they need, so that I can make a recommendation in my pitch that says, companies in your situation, we recommend you do this, and this is why, and this is what it looks like. Here's the benefit, and here are the things that we avoid if we do it this way. Here are the things that we need to watch out for. And oh, by the way, here are the things that you would have to do or have us do for you. Okay, exclusions and inclusions. So you can demo anything if you will just focus on who the demo is for and understand, are you talking best practices in general? Are you talking about what your company does and how it does it? Or are you making recommendations, specific recommendations to this client for their needs? All right. So post your questions. I'd love to answer any questions about what you think 2021 might be or how to apply anything that I've just talked about today. While you're thinking those up, I've got a couple things I want to remind you about. I'm a business consultant. I work with companies like yours. I do coaching. I do advisory. If you want to know how we can work together and you're going, well, now it's finally time to do that, introductory call, schedule some time. We'll have a quick discussion. We'll book more time if we want to move forward to see what that looks like and get deeper into it. But we need to figure out if we're a good fit and how we can work together. This is where we get started. This would be the early stage introductory pitch, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. Now, over on Intentional Success Network, which is your community, it's for you. It's a labor of love on my part. I have a 2021 Rapid Response Discussion Group that we've started that has a great bunch of videos already put onto it. It's just a discussion group to talk about the coming year. I'm putting some videos in there to help give you some tactical lessons. This is practical stuff about how to do things that are important for you right now. Again, this comes out of the questions that I'm getting and the conversations that I'm having. This is some of the stuff that I'm teaching my coaching clients in our one-on-one calls. You can partake in that as well. So take a look at all that, join that. Remember, Intentional Success is free. You have to sign up, you have to register so you can have a profile. And then this is a group that once you click into it, you can keep track of it, access all the information's on there, have a conversation. It is a discussion group. Come on. Also on Intentional Success, if you just really like having stuff come at you, I've got a video series that I added last month called Intentional Success Business Strategy. It's a course that I made a few years ago that is actually pretty good. I went back and watched it all over again to see if it was still relevant, and it is still relevant. So if you like my higher production value video series, this is one of them, and it is free to you. You're welcome to have it. Next month's webinar is business as usual. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. So we're going to put 2020 behind us. We're going to look at what normal is now. Is this the new normal presentation? Yeah, maybe it is. But we have 4 weeks before it happens, so a lot can change between now and then. So let's get ready for that. You are already registered for it. So, all right, I'm getting a little uncomfortable in my seat here. Summary for today. Thank you. I see questions coming in. Our biggest problem right now for all of us is that we have too many choices. Find ways to simplify and reduce the number of choices that you feel that you have to make. Make your 2021 easier. Eliminate some of the noise. Let some stuff go so that you can move forward. Intentionality. Focus on intentionality. Yes, intentional success, intentional marketing, intentional sales. All of these things I teach. What is it that you want to happen, and how will this next step help me get there? Make those things connect. You will do better. It's the basis of everything I teach. It's what I would help you with one-on-one if we're working through your issues. Stop debating. Stop seeking consensus in your organization. It's time to make some decisions and move forward. The time for debating is over. The time for consensus. I mean, I'm not a big fan of consensus in business because I think it's non-productive. I think it holds people back. There's a time for it, but very often when we're making strategic decisions, that is not the right time. Use your vision, use your leadership, move forward, tell people where you're going, and then let's get there as fast as we can. So let's wander into some questions here. For those of you who came in here late, I'll throw up my backstage view again. I'm having fun playing with my OBS. I'm going to move over here to my Q&A transition here, and we'll talk a little bit about some of your questions here. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for letting me play with my new toy. And I'm glad I didn't feel compelled to use it a lot during the webinar today. So, questions. Feel free to add some more. Got one here from Jordan. It said, a few months ago you mentioned streaming platforms being at capacity. Does it seem that this will be the MO for the foreseeable future? I'm not hearing that noise anymore. Now, the problem with the streaming platform services is that they were having to do the customization for their clients, and they were limited on capacity for Q4. They were all booked up. They were having trouble keeping up with the programming. It's not that they don't have the bandwidth, for streaming an event. They don't have the support system for the number of events that they would need to do hands-on support for. That's why I've become a big advocate of having access to a streaming platform where you are the principal operator of the platform, that you have your own node, you're able to do your own programming so that you don't have to rely on the platform to support you. Some of you have white labeled the platforms that you are working with, and that's a great solution. Others of you can take a halfway step to there where you have access to some master level controls that you didn't have before, but at the very least, be so competent at using it that you don't need the support, and then we won't have any streaming platform capacity issues. And again, I'm not hearing that. I haven't heard that brought up in the past couple of probably 6 or 8 weeks. So I think we're past all of that. Thank you for that. In terms of communication, we're a rental company, and now we are doing merely virtual rentals. Oh, I don't know. No, you're doing virtual rentals. Okay, great. Even though we quoted our past clients, they selected to go with another supplier. Are these clients considered lost, or should we approach them again with a demo? Yeah, Go back to them. Yeah, absolutely. It's okay. I mean, one, they're in your pipeline. Okay, you just haven't done the right thing with them. Maybe they came in. If we go back to that slide I showed earlier, somebody, maybe they came in at a rental and they bounced out again, or they came in at an event and they bounced out again. Go back to those people and start another conversation. Keep them in your marketing drip. Okay, they may not be ready to buy again, but again, we're going to keep marketing them. Sometimes offering a demo when somebody didn't ask for one is kind of a non-starter. Marketing means that we keep making that available to them. We keep the conversation going so that when they are ready to ask, they know what to ask for. So putting a demo call to action into your correspondence, into your emails. Your email signature, if you look at my email signature, there's 2 calls to action on there. Sign up for the webinar, look at the Intentional Success Community. Your email signature should have something also that you can have some sort of online demo, a self-serve early stage best practices demo that somebody can serve themselves with a call to action for a more specific application to their special needs, answer their questions, do an assessment of their situation, that sort of thing. So this is all part of building a sales funnel. So we never stop building a sales funnel, even when we're busy. That's why we need some marketing and we need a little automation in our background to work on that. That's what the marketing course, the sales funnel pipeline course that I gave earlier this fall was about. And early pitch here, I've got a book coming out that specifically talks about building sales funnels with digital marketing, which you guys will be hearing about first in the next few weeks. So great question. Keep in touch with everybody. Just because you didn't win doesn't mean that we don't go back and talk to them about something else. Keep the conversation going. Keep your ears open too, right? Great way to keep the conversation is go ask them a question. And that will give you market intelligence and let them share something that you can use in your business. Another question here. With the imminent arrival of mass vaccinations, what do you see happening with pent-up demand for the return of live events? You may already address this, if so, apologies. Never apologize for asking a question. It's a fantastic question. Even if I did answer this a month ago, and I did, the answer changes because that's the world that we live in, so keep asking. My assessment, and this is my assessment, I don't see pent-up demand. There is no pent-up demand. There will be the opportunity for people to start meeting again, and businesses will start making that migration. Now, the only caveat to that is I think there is pent-up demand in social events and fundraising. I think we will see some of that want to be hybrid sooner than later. I think a lot of the graduations you're going to do this spring and summer will want to be hybrid. So that would count as pent-up demand. But as for corporations wanting to go back to 100% in-person events like the good old days, I don't see a pent-up demand there. I do see exceptions where that is true, and there are companies and organizations that philosophically want to do that. I would also counsel that it's not time yet. I would discourage you from encouraging your clients to do that yet, because we need to get through this pandemic. Remember, I've said one thing that hasn't changed is I've given you a 12-month pipeline on the pandemic. Once we start dealing with the pandemic in the U.S., we have 12 months before we can start returning to some sort of business as normal. That 12 months has not started yet. The fact that we have a vaccine out hasn't changed the fact that our behaviors are abysmal. Our ORs are in major markets are very, very full. Our positivity rates are through the roof. I mean, it's a nightmare. It is not time to talk about this stuff. We've got to get this under control. So I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you for that question. Rusty asks, hey, we're spending a lot of time analyzing our profitability at the size we are right now, expecting 6 to 9 months of the same level. Is this a good use of our time? I'll answer that in general, then I'll answer it I know, Rusty, we know each other well. I suspect there's probably a little bit of overanalysis going on there. I don't think your levels are going to maintain for 6 to 9 months. If you will put effort into your levels, your business should be actually increasing. And we're at the very beginning of what could be a hockey stick rise in virtual event demand. So I think there's a lot of potential business out there. Most of you that I'm speaking with, that I'm dealing with, could do 5 to 10 times the business you're doing now with the same full-time staff. You're going to increase your cost of goods sold slightly as you get busier, but we don't need to add a ton of infrastructure to support more business. We need to be better at outsourcing. So your profitability is going to increase dramatically because you're going to do more business, more gross profit, but you're not really going to increase your overhead, which is what we've always wanted, isn't it? So do manage your profitability, do pay attention to your gross profit levels, see what you can do to improve that. Do spend time making sure that you're keeping your overhead in line. Okay? And, oh, by the way, removing the subsidies that I talked about earlier. That advice is the same no matter where we are in our business life cycle. So that will always be important. Thank you for that. Next question. Can you put up that slide again that has the videos, whiteboard, or link in the chat? I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Well, maybe I don't. Send me an email. I'll send you whatever it is you need. Got a follow-up question. Oh, and then another follow-up question. Okay. We have the platform we built from the ground up and are working to sell it. As a more wholesale style company, how would you recommend finding the people that would like to white label the product and save themselves the time of developing something from the ground up? All right. Yeah. So that's just grassroots marketing, and that's B2B marketing. So your audience is pretty small. It's the people on this call. There are plenty of platforms out there where you can start accessing those people before you go into business development mode and build your mailing list. I mean, Intentional Success Network is not huge, but it's a great place to start to see if you get a little bit of traffic. You certainly have your social medias and your Facebooks and your LinkedIns when you can start doing that and start getting some initial traction. Identify who you want to reach out to, and now it's business development. Now it's simply that the right person calling the right person, saying, what platform are you guys using? Is it working for you? What features do you need? I have a platform with these features. Would that be of interest to you? Great. When can I do a demo for you? And demo it with the intent of getting them to move onto your platform and you providing that support. It's a great B2B play. That, to me, is one of the best pivots for somebody who isn't the frontline meeting producer or event producer, to be a B2B provider. That people that are selling the platform, brilliant. Go do it. Get out there. You might want to drop something in the chat because people want to know who the hell I'm talking to right now because they're interested in what you're doing. That's how you do it. My friend Rusty shared a little bit more here. He says, Q2 2020, 50% of projected sales, third quarter, 25th, fourth quarter, 45%. Yeah, that's about what we expected. So if you got to 45% of, I'm guessing, last year's sales in the fourth quarter, that's pretty well on track with what I was talking back about last summer. That's the amount of meetings that I thought we'd get. I think my numbers were pretty solid in forecasting that. Now, my mix of what those meetings would look like, I really thought we'd be doing more in-person hybrid style events, but most of the business we're seeing, of course, is probably 80-90% virtual. And but I'm still seeing a number of folks, a number of my clients are hitting 50% of last year's income, gross income, with just that alone. And got time for, I'm running a little bit late here, but last question here, is it appropriate for me to promote myself for freelance work in the chat? Yes, absolutely. And I would go over onto the Intentional Success Network, and there's a place there for service providers to also to promote themselves. You have special talents. This particular person I happen to know they're an expert in Flex. So get out there, talk about the things that you do. We want to outsource. There's no reason we can't outsource at every level of our business, including sales. So there you go. All right, so guys, thank you again so much. Sorry I ran a little bit long, but thank you for staying with me. This has been a blast. I've had fun playing with my new toy. I hope you've had the event that you wanted to get out of this. Feel free to reach out to me, as always, and I will see you next month.